Hey everyone, my name is Billy. I am a member of the Red Team Village and I am primarily a sponsor coordinator. And today we have White Knight Labs and we're going to be interviewing, asking a few questions, and we're excited to do so.
Hi everyone, my name is Savannah. I'm one of the leads for Red Team Village. And like Billy said, we have White Knight Labs with us today, one of our platinum sponsors. And I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to the White Knight Labs team to go ahead and introduce themselves.
Hey, everybody, I'll kick it off. So my name is Greg Hasher. I'm one of the founders of White Knight Labs. We're a boutique offensive cybersecurity consultancy. My background, I was a Green Beret in the Special Forces Group for 7 years. Did 4 combat deployments in the Middle East, got out, went right into offensive security. I met John, my business partner, working at a boutique shop right here in Grand Rapids. But then from there, I went over to contracting for CISA, did some teaching at the NSA. And then about 3 years back, we started WPL. Yeah, John, you want to take it from there?
Yep. Hey guys, John Servolt here, one of the co-founders of White Knight Labs here. Interesting background, starting as IT help desk, right around 18 years old, and I've been doing this almost 14 years now. Started as help desk, sysadmin, CISO, pen tester, red teamer. Done hundreds of jobs all across the world. So very nice to meet you guys. Lots of fun. Good, Sean.
Hey everyone. Yeah, I'll go on. Hey everyone, my name is Ronak Parmar. I work as a senior cloud security engineer at White Knight Labs. So my specific area into is in web and cloud, mainly in Azure. I used to be a DJ and a music producer as well before I come into an IT field. And I'm a commerce background student. I'm not from IT background. And yeah, my first and ever certificate was the OSWE. And yeah, that's it.
Hey everyone, my name is Sean Edwards. I'm the Director of Red Teaming and R&D here at White Knight. Pretty new to the team. I'm coming in to lead the offensive development training and also Red Team operations, as well as take a focus on how we can improve our operations and develop our own in-house capabilities and do our own R&D. My background is originally in software development, started as just a coder writing normal software unrelated to hacking and malware. Eventually learned of red teaming and then got into that and spent some time doing red teaming in the DoD and federal government in the US, and then moved in the commercial sector, doing consulting and purple teaming, adversary emulation, and now I'm here at White Knight looking forward to getting back into red teaming.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Chirag Savla. I'm also working as a senior cloud security engineer at White Knight Labs. My area of interest lies into Active Directory and Azure specifically, as well as internal pen test. And our current focus is to work more and more on Azure environments and find out new attack techniques and ways by which we can compromise enterprises in a different ways, and additionally add values to the enterprise wherein they have a huge Azure environment. We also working on internally developing certain automations for lab deployments, lab scenarios, and stuff. So that's all about me. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Janelle Trenser. I am a project manager at White Knight Labs. My background is working with small boutique cybersecurity firms.
Awesome. Thank you everyone for introducing yourselves. It was great to hear everyone's backgrounds. We'll go ahead and dive into questions. So to kick it off with John, what do you see with red teaming at White Knight Labs, and how has it kind of affected your perception of the red teaming practice, of seeing the change over the last few years?
Good question. So this is an interesting question. This comes from my personal background because I've been red teaming for 6 years now, roughly across multiple firms, companies. So what's changed in red teaming? I wouldn't say we have changed. I would say the customers and clients have changed, which is forcing us or other competition firms, red teams that have also forcing a change across our side as well. So what's changed in the US market? We're seeing budget restrictions, right? So your typical red team engagement, at least years ago when I first started, 17, 18, were 8 weeks, 10 weeks, 12 weeks long, right? External, phishing, internal, seeded access, the full shebang with physical sometimes as well. Now we're seeing red teams today, especially in 2024, 4 weeks, 3 weeks, 6 weeks. We're seeing a more reduced scope across all red team engagements for almost all US customers. So it's slowly dwindling down. we're even seeing US customers actually pick certain scopes where it's like, hey, 3 weeks of seeded access. This is all we want. We don't want any phishing. They have no before or whatever the case would be, or they have some kind of spear phishing alternative. Same thing with physical access. Same thing with external pen testing. They've had hundreds of external pen tests. They just don't feel the need for it. They don't want to pay $100,000 for a red team. So I think it really comes down to budgetary restrictions. I don't even think it really falls to the maturity level, right? And that's really forcing us to kind of change our tactics. Having to move a little bit faster. The scoping has changed. The pricing, around red teams altogether, it's really affected and changed the team. So overall, I'd say we're very more strategic. Very more business oriented. Looking for those objectives, because when we do a red teaming, we're always objective based, right? Like domain admin, it's not even a goal usually. It's how do I cripple the business to the knees, right? I want that PHI, the PII, the contracts, the sensitive information. I want to really show the impact and operational value. And it's hard only having 15, 20, 25 days to do that, with all the prep time that a red team truly takes. So we've seen we're building services out around that to kind of change up what we call red teaming, more like insider threats, or maybe like a mini red team, or maybe a kind of a custom ransom simulation service, things like that. So, and that's really impacted our red team practice altogether. So I think kind of breaking it down has really helped quite a bit.
Yeah, I definitely see that as definitely accurate from red teams over the past few years on my side as well. And I'm sure Billy can agree with that too. I guess from a vision standpoint, where do you kind of see White Knight Labs kind of going from a vision perspective, and how do you see White Knight Labs shifting the industry?
Very good. Two great questions, right? So I think we're already on our vision, at least for the next 2 years, as long as red team still stays a thing, right? Which it always will, because someone's always going to want the covert operation, right? You have your typical pen testing, you have coverts, right? So where do we see ourselves going? Still selling red teaming, right? Still selling the same service, but not just as a whole. I think breaking it up, we're going to call them sprints, right? So we'll sell, external red teaming, phishing as a red teaming, or phishing as a service, or AKA business email compromise, right? A real covert operation. Same thing for physicals. We do physical operations as covert or as just a typical, physical pen test with a walkthrough with a white cell. So we do that as well. Our most common is seeded access, or assumed point of breach, or a bastion host. However you want to word that for different red teams, different competition out there that do the same thing we do. So I think just tailoring to clients would be the best way to do it. Every client is so different. There's no client that fits the same cookie cutter kind of style for red teaming. And I think that's the true case of understanding it, right? Where do we see ourselves going? Honestly, I think White Knight Labs is going to help, possibly lead the way for R&D across red teaming. We have some really big initiatives and goals, especially around our side. As you guys know, if anybody follows us, we're really big in the community. We love to give back. We're working on our own custom C2, our own framework, kind of getting away from the commercial side, where we plan to release our C2, the beacons, all that kind of stuff, and then kind of, have an advanced logging server. But we're going to spend a lot of time on research development, because we know a successful red team, you have to have criteria around bypassing AVDR, but that's just the first point. Lateral movement, being understand, what the client needs, completing the objectives. There's a ton of time in development that goes around way more than just bypassing AVDR, building payloads, right? It's infrastructure. So we plan to release, a ton of things around, to the community is free, along with our training courses too, because, our goal is to really be big on the education side. So I think that's kind of where we're going to go. I don't know if someone else has a different opinion on there.
I love all those answers, and if you have anyone you need to test your C2, I'm always open to be able to test.
There's a long line of people right ahead of you.
I know, we all love to, so just me and Billy, we'll be on the waiting list. I'll go ahead and pass it over to Billy for the next few questions.
Okay, great. Thank you, Savannah. And Greg, I'd like to hear from you on this one. I think John already hit on a little bit of it, but how does White Knight Labs see red teaming evolving and making impacts? And what are you specifically working on at White Knight Labs that differentiates you from everyone else?
Yeah, so I would say that red teaming has evolved over the last couple of years, because we don't really see a lot of default plain Jane and internal Active Directory environments anymore. We're seeing a huge shift to SaaS. So we have to compromise SaaS either for initial access or for moving laterally. We're hunting for credentials like in HTML and JavaScript on their website. Maybe like the developer left AWS programmatic keys in there so we can access the AWS console, things like that, as opposed to just the normal RCE fish. And then all of a sudden we have to escalate to DA and then start completing the objectives. So there's that piece. we also got an ask from a red team client recently over at WKL that they want us to like kick off a Linux beacon and a Mac beacon to start the engagement. So that was interesting. So like they wanted basically a payload that could bypass EDR for Linux, Mac, and Windows, which is quite a bit of development on our side. So we're seeing that as well. I would say that EDR bypass is a must now, being able to bypass these endpoint defense products and network monitoring tools. And also RCE phishing in the year 2024 is really terrible, as you probably both know. There's like multiple gates that you have to get through to land that endpoint on the workstation or server, and then you have to bypass EDR locally. So that's become quite terrible for us. We still do it, but we'd rather get in some other way if possible, like just break into the building and plan a Raspberry Pi on their network to get around all of it. So we're also seeing clients that have multiple cloud providers like GCP, AWS, and Azure, like all three. So being able to effectively conduct red team operations across all three main CSPs and move laterally between them and escalate privileges between them has been a critical piece of WKL as well. I would say things that haven't really changed or evolved much are physical access operations. There's still a really big ask of our clients. We had one very interesting one recently where me and Dave Peters, one of our interns, we were like low crawling through poison ivy in the middle of the night, and we didn't know it was poison ivy. But that's like a whole other story in itself. And John can talk to you about his role in that operation as well. The police were involved quite a bit on that one. So. And then there was a second piece to that. What are you working on, and how does it differentiate WKL from others? I would say what we're working on right now is building out our physical practice a little bit more, getting more tech involved, like maybe some like passive monitoring, so we don't have to have like a warm body like pulling surveillance on a security guard as they're roving around. Maybe just like plant like a Simply Safe camera there that can like reach out over 5G or something, and we can just watch the security guard travel around via a mobile application or something. We're also developing our private C2, like John already mentioned. That's a really interesting one. It's built in C# and .NET. We have one of our principal embedded engineers that's building out our embedded course. It's going to be a very advanced course that we'll probably submit to Black Hat for next year. We have another engineer that's building out a C2 course, so how to write a C2 infrastructure like from scratch or C2 framework from scratch. And then we have another engineer that's building out a lateral movement course that'll be very advanced. So lots of initiatives at WKL. We're trying to lead the charge, if you will. But yeah, the days of using Metasploit are over. So for sure.
Yeah, those sound like some really great initiatives, and I got to say that I can't think of anybody better than a Green Beret to crawl through some poison ivy. So, okay, Sean, for you, any words that you have for all the red teamers out there, or that you want to suggest or advise, particularly if they're interested in White Knight Labs in the future?
Yeah, sure. So I think when I consider WKL as a brand, we've got a pretty unique brand. So we tend to hire generally only senior engineers. And usually when it comes to red teamers, we're looking for people who have experience with C2 and have experience with AV, EDR bypass and everything. But we're especially looking for people who can work as a team, work as a member of a team, as a team player, kind of operate like a military team in that regard, where we have people each with their specialties, each with their own unique skill sets, and we combine those together to be able to compound and achieve whatever the objective is. So we want people who are team players and who have experience, and especially red team experience that's focused on objective-based engagements. So those would be longer operations that are focused more on being covert and achieving whatever business-oriented objectives the customer specified. Real red teams, a lot of times you only do them 3-6 times a year at most, because they tend to be longer and more objective-oriented. So that's the sort of background that we're usually looking for. And then as well, people who understand operational security and especially can learn what is normal in an environment that we're targeting and be able to adapt to that and stay quiet by blending in with the noise.
Yeah, those are all great traits. How would you see people developing those traits? What's the best way to kind of build those skills?
Well, we have some training for you. So we do have that. I think also in terms of understanding how an enterprise works and networks tend to be managed and everything, a lot of that is just experience either doing sysadmining. I mean, I always view people with a sysadmin background as very valuable when it comes to red teaming, because sysadmins are hackers anyway. You know, to get your job done, you have to basically, you know, modify the environment. You have to, you know, figure out why the security guy locked down something that you didn't think should be locked down, and you have to get around that to get your job done. So having that sysadmin background can help a lot. The development background as well. I think, as Greg and John mentioned, right now in red teaming, you really have to, as a team, have a focus on R&D. There's not really an option to survive in operations anymore, just using whatever you can download off the internet, or even a lot of commercially available frameworks, just stock out of the box. So software development skills, being able to write code and also understand how the languages and the operating systems themselves work. So something like understanding Windows internals can be very valuable. Try to understand how the core mechanisms of the operating system work, so that you can understand how an EDR might be leveraging that to gain telemetry and understand what you're doing, as well as understanding how to be as low level as possible and get down to syscalls, assembly language, that sort of thing.
Yeah, those are great. Thank you. Thanks, Sean. That was a great answer. So for the last question, I kind of want to open this up to anybody. And Sean, you got me kind of hungry here. I want to open this up to final words from everybody, but I also wouldn't mind hearing a little bit more about this training that you mentioned that you guys offer. I think that would be a great opportunity. So over to you guys, whatever order you want, any final words, and maybe a little bit more on the training that White Knight Labs offers.
Sure, you want to talk about the offensive Azure course?
Yes. So like recently, last month, we launched a new training that is like offensive Azure operations and tactics, wherein we would be covering a lot of concepts on Azure. That starts with how you gain initial access, how you compromise Azure environments with minimal roles, and then it moves on to understanding lateral movement tactics. What are the ways by which you can extract the sensitive information from various services, even when you have low privileges. And then we move on to some attack techniques, which would talk on more like cloud to on-prem pivoting, and from on-prem to cloud pivoting, because in our some of our internal pen tests, we have seen that there are hybrid environments that the clients are using, and it is really important if we find out some ways to compromise their cloud environment also with the privilege access like global admin, which helps the client to understand that yes, the servers where there are hybrid identities configured, those have to be like entire zero, and an additional security has to be configured. The lab environments, we have like almost 30 plus labs in our course, and all the labs environment are built based on our real pen test experience that we have seen against various environments. The final lab, we call it as a final lab, that is like a challenge lab for every student. So anything that they have learned during the course, and there would be certain challenges that they would have to face in the final lab. So final lab is more like a CTF for everyone, which they solve it. And if someone managed to solve that final lab, they probably get some swag or reward from WKL team. But again, they have to share the write-up. So that's all about our new offensive Azure course.
Yeah, we also have an offensive development course. So what I was talking about earlier, where we start out kind of giving people the background of the development skills that they need, understanding the Windows operating system, things like PE files and basic process injection. And then we really advance to where we want to take students, which is the ability to develop their own EDR bypasses. So we have a lab with some security products that you can play around with and do some reverse engineering yourself. We walk through some of that so people understand how an EDR actually works underneath the hood, and also understand how commonly available bypasses that they might have seen function, and how they can customize those or even create new ones themselves. So that course is all around building out your development skills as it relates to your offensive capabilities. And similar to what Chirag mentioned, it's entirely lab driven. So we'll do some lecture where we cover the concept, whatever the topic is, provide any additional insights that we as instructors have on the subject and provide our own experience, and then go into a lab. And it's like 30 of those in 2 days. So it's very lab focused, very hands-on. And at the end, there's a final capstone, like you mentioned, where if you can go and bypass all the EDRs in the lab and do a write-up for us, then we'll send you some swag or something, and maybe a gift card or something like that. So it's, that course is very much focused on advancing your capabilities to be able to not just rely on tools other people have made, but be able to customize and craft your own.
And to piggyback on what Sean said, we typically hire the people that submit those write-ups that have the best report and the best bypasses.
Yep. And then to tail off for the end here, so of course that me and Greg really focused on was the ARTO, Advanced Red Team Operations course. And this is probably one of our most advanced courses we have outside of like the cloud area, where we basically, using Global Strike, a full C2 framework with a brand new profile that I wrote by hand, that pretty much will bypass most AV EDR today, network traffic. Its job is to blend in, right? Your goal is use Terraform, spin up one C2 server. The goal of day one is to build redirectors and infrastructure supporting that C2 inside Azure, AWS, Azure, and then we also leverage GCP as well with the CDNs, and we use redirectors with Apache to protect that C2 from the internet. So we don't just give you a C2, but we show you how to set up redirectors, protect it correctly, redirect, do 302s, everything possible, add in custom rules. And then day two, you're required to use everything you set up on day one to attack a real live network, Stigs Corp. If you guys know my handle, I'm Stigs, right? So stigscorp.com, and then you'll have to attack that in day two. And there's I think there's a total of 12 challenges that where you go all the way from like a simple web application that we've found real live on a real red team, to multiple applications, to pivoting to and ending with a domain controller with an ADCS exploit, things like that. So really cool, really sophisticated. It's a ton of content. Day one is so intense. So, and then day two kind of a little bit easier. I wouldn't say it's as bad as day one, but it's really far out there. And we're now including serverless technology such as Lambda, and also Azure core functions and things like that to really hide your C2. We're actually we have a brand new course coming out, a few ones, so I'll cover some of those. And just so you guys know, all of the courses we have available today, we're going on demand within the next 2 months. So you won't just be live for anymore, but all on demand. So if anybody wants on demand, now will be the time to get it. We have a brand new one coming out. It's called Red Team. It's infrastructure redirectors. So it covers not just redirectors like the Air2 does, but a way more advanced model. It also covers Terraform, setting up C2, automation. This one's going to cover Sliver, Mythic, Global Strike as well, using Docker containers. It doesn't just cover everything else. Actually, we take you through the full Red Team picture, right? Event log servers, Ghostwriter, reports, logging, all the cloud technology, everything you would need to set up Red Team infrastructure and redirectors to protect your C2. On-demand course only, 300 to 500 pages. It's going to be super intense. All lab driven. You run the labs yourself. You get everything for free forever. So on the labs, there's no expiration date other than the Global Strike server, of course. So per license requirements. So after that, we're working on our first flagship certificate course. So we are going to release our own intro to pen testing, our spin on it. So people who are just coming into the industry, intro to pen testing, to be able to take our course and get a industry recognized certificate. So that's our goal for that. And we'll be doing the same thing for Red Team Cert as well, right after that one. So you intro to pen testing, intro to red teaming. And then if that wasn't enough, we also have, it's called Dark Knight Labs. So one of my biggest pet peeves, guys, is like, if you're a red teamer, you have to do a ton of research for these malware bypasses, right? Sure, we have other resources. I won't throw out competitor names, but we have other resources that do a pretty good job with native code. But that's all they give you is native code, right? And that's not enough anymore. We need some alternatives. So we have Dark Knight Labs. It's going to be our own academy of malware bypasses and malware development, and for AV EDR. It's called Dark Knight Labs. It's going to include native code, C++, C#, Go, and Rust. It's going to cover 4 different languages where you're pay your subscription, and you can get in there and you're going to see all process injection, SCH overflows, anything like that, anything that you would need for AV EDR bypasses, right? Written in 4 different languages. So it's going to be super cool. So, and if you guys, obviously as red teamers, you guys know who I'm talking about. So we're really going to throw our own twist on there. We teach defensive development. We teach all the bypasses, the indirect, direct syscalls, all that stuff. But we're going to do it in different languages too. Different compilers. If you guys know me, I love compilers. I've done talks on compilers before. Now it's time to really expand that to different languages. So that's another really big thing we're working on.
I think this is the first time we've publicly discussed the Dark Knight Labs education platform. Is it, John?
Yeah, on a webinar. We talk about our training courses to get the students kind of like a little like, hey, what's coming. But this is the first official announcement I think that we have. So.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you guys for sharing all that. While you were talking, I could literally hear my wallet getting thinner. So lots of good stuff there. Okay, if nobody else has any other final words or closing comments, I'll pass it back to Savannah to close us out.
Yeah, one more thing. So we will be at various conferences this year. So we'll be at CloudCon and GerdaCon in Grand Rapids. I'm a Grand Rapids local, so I try to rep the company as much as possible over here. And then we'll also be sponsoring Hack RedCon, which will be at Churchill Downs later this year. And then we'll pretty much all be at DEF CON as well. So looking forward to seeing you both in person.
Sweet. Thank you everyone for coming on today's call. I really appreciate you guys sponsoring as a platinum sponsor, and looking forward to seeing all of you guys at DEF CON.
Awesome. Thanks for having us.
Looking forward to seeing you.
Thank you.